Okay, so thank you very much, all of you, for joining again on our Sunday discussions on the fundamentals of Bhagavad Gita. This is the course Discover Yourself and topic 6. We have successfully completed 5 topics, and I hope that your perception of looking into this world of understanding things in this world, observations, would have changed many folds from the knowledge which you have received from the first topic till the last topic. Okay. Now, last week we discussed about the spiritual world and the material world, and we all understood that all the religions are talking about going somewhere to some other world, which is, Bible calls it kingdom of God, Islam calls it Jannat. We in Sanatan Dharma they are called Golok Vrindavan. It's called Vaikuntha, right? So there are so many names, but the common thing is that all the religions are talking about it. All the spiritual practices are talking about this world, this body, the experiences in this world as temporary, right? And we all are hankering for something permanent, and hence we need to go to somewhere, uh, the place which is permanent. Now the question is, there are so many spiritual paths, there are so many religions. What should I practice? Right? God has to be one. Spiritual world has to be one. Then why God has given so many religions? Uh, if a baby is trying to walk in the path of spirituality, we are children and we are children of God. God is our supreme Father. So if the supreme Father wants us to go back home, back to Godhead, then he should have made it very easy, isn't it? When a small kid is learning to walk, the parents, they remove the furniture, they remove some sharp objects in the home, right? They want to make sure that the baby is not hurt when he's trying to learn to walk, right? So we make it easy for children. So God has made it complicated, isn't it? By giving so many ways to reach him. So that's what the topic today. And uh, I assure you that you will get an understanding, very very amazing understanding of looking at things, looking at religions and paths and sects in this world, and that will clear a lot of your doubts. And also, it will clear what should I follow. Okay, as per my level, what should I follow? Okay, so why did God create so many religions? Why there are different names, forms, rituals, right? And what is there any ultimate goal behind all these religions? Okay, so the first thing is that religions are presented according to the ability of audience to digest the truth. Okay, religions are classified in this way. So I'll come to this religion aspect. First, let's take an example. Let us say that you are feeling little sick, okay, and you go to a doctor. You are waiting in the hall, in the lobby, and there is one patient inside the doctor's room. And while the patient, an earlier patient, is coming out, you over here, okay, from outside, you are the next one to go, and you over here, doctor is saying to this person that make sure that you smoke one packet of cigarette every day today onwards. Okay. So my question to all of you is, what will you understand after hearing this? You will see all the degrees. You will see whether I'm at the right place. Is the doctor a quack? Is he a real doctor? How can he uh, suggest a patient to smoke one pack of cigarette every day? Hmm? Anybody can they share? Why should doctor ask this person to smoke one packet of cigarette every day? Because this person would have been smoking 10 packets of cigarettes every day, isn't it? Now, because he has come to the doctor, and doctor has to treat this person. He has to remove his diseases away, and for that he has to change his habits. If the doctor says that today onwards you cannot smoke. Okay, just forget about smoking. What will happen? This person will stop coming that, I am addicted to smoking. Of course, it is troubling my body. I am getting diseases, but I cannot stop smoking, right? Immediately. And also, this person will not go to this doctor, will not come to this doctor for treatment. He will also not go to any other doctor also for the treatment because he knows that everybody is going to ask me to stop smoking, right? So this doctor understands the psychology of the patient, okay? And he is trying to play with his psychology, and he's saying that, okay, I will cure you, your disease will get away, but you smoke one packet of cigarette every day. That means reduce. Okay, you are at 10, just smoke one pack. Hmm? Now, similarly, religions, right? This world religions, whatever religions exist in this world, they are presented according to the ability of audience to digest the truth. Here, the smoker cannot digest the truth that he has to leave smoking immediately. He cannot digest. So, doctor is giving him something which he can digest. In the spirituality also, people who are spiritually advanced, message is given in an undiluted, pure form, concentrated form. For example, you have to go back home, back to Godhead. That's the ultimate goal of your life. You should look for pure love for God. These are the messages. And for the people who are not so advanced, I'm sorry, the message is given, the message is modified suitably so that the audience does not reject it, mm, to help them make limited spiritual progress. For example, some people are asked to pray to God to get some material benefits, right? They are asked to do that by some spiritual people, by some astrologers, right? Now, we know that there are many temples in India which are famous for this kind of thing. That you go to, for example, Tirupati Balaji, right? A lot of people go, thousands of people go every day. They ask their wishes, that they put something in the hundi, they present something to God, and they ask to fulfill their wish, right? Uh, there is a temple in Andhra Pradesh which is called Visa Balaji. This is different from Tirupati Balaji. Okay, this temple is called Visa Balaji. All software people would have heard about it if they ever wanted to get US visa. This temple is very famous for, you go to the temple, you make your wish. If your US visa is not getting sanctioned, after going there, people say that your US visa gets sanctioned. Okay, so many times this is asked that people can look for some material benefits when they are approaching God. Okay. Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, before that, this Bhagavad Gita, right? This entire conversation is highly intellectual subject. You would know it, and especially those who have attended the Gita Sar, right? You can see that this is highly intellectual subject. This is based on so many philosophical aspects, the nyaya, the dharma, the way the life has to be lived. Now, from the Bible, from the history of Jesus, we understand what was the audience to whom Jesus preached. There was a disciple called uh, Judas, right? He sold the information about Jesus. Where is he hiding, right? Because the king wanted to kill Jesus Christ. So Judas sold his information for 30 silver coins. This is the situation of the people of the audience of Jesus, right? Here in India, we see that any spiritual personality, right? Of course, God is revered so much, and even the pujaris, even the the people who worship God in the temples, and the spiritual authorities like gurus. We celebrate Guru Purnima every year in India. Guru is such a great personality for us. We worship Guru, right? That is our culture. And here, Jesus' audience has sold Jesus information, right? there was some person called Peter in Jesus' flock. He denied knowing Jesus when he was tortured. He was caught. He said that I do not know Jesus. I don't have anything to do with him. Okay, please forgive me. Please leave me. There was a disciple of Jesus. He was called. His name was Thomas, but he used to doubt every now and then. Whatever Jesus used to say, he used to doubt always. Huh? Oh, will I get food? Oh, will this happen? Will that happen? Like that. So Jesus actually named him Doubting Thomas. In the Bible, it is mentioned many places. Doubting Thomas. So Jesus called him that he's a man of little faith. So how the preaching started, the message which Jesus wanted to give to his audience, he actually, the first incident which is recorded, basically it is said that he went to a fisherman, and this fisherman was trying to catch some fishes from the ocean. Hmm? And he was very hungry. His family was suffering for days. They had not been any, they had not earned or eaten food, so they were depending upon the fishes. Jesus came. He caught hold of his net. He just moved it a little bit, and then he asked him that, okay, now you pull the net. And when he pulled the net, now there were hundreds of fishes in the net. So this fisherman, I think his name was John the fisherman. Hmm? This fisherman started calling Masiha, Masiha, Masiha. Why? Because these people are dying, and this Jesus has come, and he has given them ample fishes to eat and sell. So he is Masiha. So like that, Jesus showed them miracles. Jesus actually showed them. He walked on water, and people actually saw those miracles happening, and that is how they put faith in Jesus. Okay. Now here in India, there are thousands of yogis who are living in Himalayas. They are doing their meditation, tapasya, and they can do a lot of miracles like this, but they never come into the general public. Okay, they are happy, they are busy in their own meditations, they are realizing God. And we know, most of Indian people know that yes, yogis have mystic powers. Hmm? uh, but these people, they were so uh, poor by their intelligence and their spiritual advancement, that Jesus had to show these miracles so that these people put faith in Jesus. Right? Now, Jesus said that thou shalt not kill. And this message had to be given to these people because they are hunters, they are killers. Every day they kill animals, they kill fishes to survive. Jesus had to teach them, please don't kill other living entities. And here in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is telling that no, killing is sin. I can't kill in this battle. He put his weapons down, and Krishna is asking him that no, you should kill, because that is your dharma right now. Okay, so the religious principle, the spirituality is presented to the audience according to the ability to digest truth. Okay, let's move ahead. Different scriptures are meant for different audiences. Okay, for example, the elementary school, right? We teach very basic arithmetic to the children. 2 minus 5, bigger number and smaller number, subtraction has to be from the bigger number to the smaller number. You cannot do vice versa, right? But in the high school, we teach them 2 minus 5 equal to minus 3. The small children cannot understand negative numbers. The high school children can understand that. And then the college mathematics, or advanced mathematics, it it doesn't have any numbers only. It all works in ABC and all these equations, like, right? So gradually the intelligence develops of children from to understand the higher level mathematics, right? Similarly, in the spirituality also, we can understand some religions as elementary schools, some as high schools, some have some like colleges, right? So for example, in the Quran, it is mentioned that all animals except pig and dog can be eaten after sacrifice. Okay, that is Islam. Christianity also says that Roman Catholics, they can take meat every day, but they should not take meat on Friday. Hmm? Now, please think about this. What kind of audience has to be given this sort of message? Hmm? Chinese people, for example, they can eat whatever flies in the sky apart from aeroplanes. They can eat everything which crawls on the ground apart from automobiles, and they can eat anything which swims in the water apart from submarines or ships or boats, right? They can't. So there is no living entity which these people cannot eat. They don't eat. Hmm? There is a in one part of China there is a delicacy. What is a delicacy? A very very kind of a newborn baby monkey, a live baby monkey. They take in the restaurants. They catch them. Actually, they breed monkeys for just for this delicacy. And the baby monkey uh, is alive, and they actually cut their skull, open their skull, and then this baby monkey is presented to the people, and they put straw in the skull and they drink the blood of the monkey. This kind of civilization. Okay. Now, if we tell to these people no, what does the Sanatan Dharma say? It says that meat eating is a pillar of sinful life, and true spiritual life cannot begin until we show mercy towards all God's creatures. All living entities are God's parts and parcels. We cannot give suffering to other living entity just for my selfish uh, motive, right? That is Sanatan Dharma. And if this message is given to such audience, what will they do? They will reject. They will say that no, we don't want to go back home, back to Godhead. We will suffer whatever is the case, but we are addicted. We cannot leave the ways of our living. Now, for these people, a message has to be given that okay, you eat everything but leave pig and dog, or you don't eat meat on certain days of the week, right? So that at least some some advancement happens. Some animals are saved. Somewhere we show mercy. Now, for example, uh, Islam also talks about halal, right? They eat halal meat. What is halal? That you cut only one or two veins here in the throat of the animal, and you actually see him dying in front of your eyes, and then you distribute 9 parts and consume 1 part. Now, an intelligent person who is doing this activity will understand that I'm taking uh, I'm taking so many efforts for this 1 part of meat, and for that also I have to this animal is suffering in front of my eyes. I should not do it. That kind of compassion should arise one's heart, right? That is how they are these systems are prescribed, that you should kill and eat in this way. Then that is halal. Okay, so that ultimately the people can get away from this um, bad habit of eating meat. But what is this conditioned intelligence, right? This mind intelligence, false ego. The false ego says that I am the human being, I am the Muslim, or I am a particular religion person, and whatever uh, is told uh, is for my enjoyment even in the scriptures. That is a false ego. Then intelligence says that okay, so uh, this killing in this way is okay because this is prescribed my scriptures, right? And I have to do halal. So then we will cut. They forget everything about halal, and they just only remember we have to cut only small portion of the throat, and then leave the animal dying for some time. And now there are mechanized slaughterhouses in India, in Australia, so many parts of the world, where cows, goats, all these creatures are hung upside down, okay, on large conveyor belts, which is rotating, and a blade cuts their throats, and the blood keeps dripping. These animals keep writhing on that conveyor belt, and very bad kind of death comes to these animals. because it doesn't come immediately. And then this meat is taken out and it is shipped, packaged and shipped to these Gulf countries, or in the supermarkets even in India, and people purchase that meat and they eat, right? That, oh, we we did not do anything bad, we did not kill, okay, and it is halal. But what kind of halal it is, because you do not follow the complete procedure, right? So this is not allowed. Eating in this way, eating meat in this way is not allowed in any of the religions. Okay. So now see, when we are discussing this, we are not saying that the Islam or Christianity is bad. Okay. We are not comparing, or we are not saying that we are superiors, or persons who are practicing Sanatana Dharma or in Hinduism are superior. No, it is not the case. We need to understand now Hinduism also. So there are elementary school, high school, and university, right? Some religions are at the level of kindergarten or the elementary school or the high school. Hinduism, actually, the Sanatan Dharma is full. It has rules and regulations, injunctions for elementary class student also, high school also, kindergarten also, and the university student also. We will discuss that. Okay. So Hinduism also supports, not supports, but allows meat eating. Okay. But there are injunctions given in the Shastras to do that. How can you do that? There are procedures given. Okay. Now, somebody, let's say, who is practicing Islam, who is practicing Christianity. Srila Prabhupada, when he went to the United States, he was asked by a reporter, "Have you come here to make everybody Hindus?" Srila Prabhupada answered, "No, I have not come here to convert your religion. I have come here to request you to please follow whatever you are doing, follow properly, follow your scriptures. If you are a Christian, you claim to be a Christian, you follow your Bible letter by letter. Okay, do not put your bad, dirty intelligence in between and misinterpret. Now, Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill," but Christians have developed and installed, you know, very highly sophisticated slaughterhouses all over the world. And when they are asked that "Thou shalt not kill," no, what does it mean? They say that, yeah, we can kill animals, but we should not kill humans. That is how they misinterpret. No, killing is killing. Jesus did not say, Jesus did not discriminate between animals and humans. He always said that "Thou shalt not kill." Similarly, Islam also. If somebody who is following Islam, our message is that follow it properly. Okay. Now I'll give you one stark example, and then after that we'll move ahead. In the uh, Islamic, Abrahamic religions, the Quran, right? The biggest place of worship is uh, Makkah, Medina, right? People go to Hajj, and in that place, meat eating is not allowed. Men and women, they have to live separately. They cannot live together, so that they don't indulge with each other. Okay, even if you're husband and wife, you have to live separately. Okay, so that place is regarded very highly, no, very high and very pure and everything, right? So you should not do bad activities there. That's why these rules are there. Now, and one of the message in Quran, okay, I just got reminded that it says that a person should not have sex with his mother or with his sister. Now think about it. What kind of an audience would be there who has to be explained this, that you should not have such kind of a sexual activity, such kind of sexual relation? Hmm? People who do not discriminate between mother and sister also, they have to be told this. So the point is, religions and the scriptures are meant to bring us to some level. Okay. And after we attain that level, it is time to move forward. It is time to move up. It is time to graduate, right? You cannot always be in elementary school and say that mathematics is subtracting smaller numbers from bigger numbers. Okay. If somebody is saying that negative numbers are existing, they are bad fellows, let's kill them. Okay, there are some people who are doing that in today's world. Whatever my religion says is greatest and other religions are bad. Hmm? They will go to hell. No, it's not like that. Every religion is presenting one level of truth. Okay, and when it is time, we should move up. Okay, let's move ahead. Essential principles of all the religions are the same. What are the essential principles? This is a summary given here. First is God is one and love of God should be our goal. Okay, every religion is talking about it. We should obey God's laws. We should serve God. We should return kingdom of God. We should not sin anymore. We should glorify holy names. We should sacrifice and we should renounce our material pleasure. That is sort of tapasya we do. And all religions say that we should approach a bona fide spiritual master for spiritual progress. Okay, we cannot remain atheists and wear the garb of secularism. Hmm? What is secularism? In India, especially, people say, oh, let's not discuss about religion, let's not discuss about Bhagavad Gita or any other religious book. We are seculars, Let us not teach this scriptures in the schools or colleges. We are seculars. But what does it mean? Secularism means that we should respect all religions, right? We should not give a bias to any particular religion. We should treat them equally. Okay, we should not do partiality. Secularism is to enforce the practice of these essential principles, that we should focus on these principles, right? But today, especially in India, it has become sort of atheism, that if we are secular, then we are not practicing anything. Especially these political leaders, they have made these subjects so touchy, that these people, they do not have any basis. Only they will always talk about secularism and not do anything, and then just abuse Hinduism in the name of secularism. So many movies are being made, so many articles are being published, all these TV serials, etc., which are going on even today in the TV. They are all showing wrong incidents. They did not even happen in Krishna's life, but they are showing them on the TV in the name of secularism. Hmm? So their philosophy, today's secularism philosophy, is just eat, drink, and be merry. Do not make any attempt to understand spirituality. And that is why, I'm sorry. And that is why Prabhupada used to say that today's schools and colleges are slaughterhouses. They kill your souls. They take you away from the spirituality. And that is why we have to understand these aspects now in this age. And we have like 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. Now we have to understand the Bhagavad Gita fundamentals. This should be there in the 5th class in the schools. Okay. Now different religions have same message, but other religions are can be compared to a pocket dictionary, and Sanatan Dharma can be compared to a big dictionary, the Oxford, the Chambers, right? These some dictionaries are full. No English word is out of these dictionaries. And there are other dictionaries which are pocket dictionaries, right? They don't have all the words. They only have the essential keywords. So how do we understand this? Jesus in Bible says, there is much that I have to tell you, but you cannot bear it right now. Why had Jesus said that? Because he knew that his audience is very, very spiritually downgraded. They will not be able to understand this message. Okay, so I want to tell them more, but right now is not the time. Hmm? So, okay, there is, I think there was one. Similarly, actually, in Islam, Quran also it is mentioned that the Pagambar Muhammad, right? The Muhammad, he said that when God gave me knowledge, he gave me half. And now when I am giving you knowledge, I am giving you half. Okay, this is what Muhammad told all his audiences. But what does Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita? 7th chapter, 2nd verse. The translation is given here on the screen. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge which is both phenomenal and nominal, and by knowing which there shall remain nothing further to be known. Right? This is what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. There is nothing remaining after knowing this message. Okay? So what is Sanatan Dharma actually? Sanatan Dharma, the word Sanatan, you remember the soul is eternal, right? That so this word eternal in Sanskrit is called Sanatan. And what is dharma? What is dharma of the soul? Dharma of the soul is to love and serve God, because soul is part and parcel of God, right? So what is Sanatan Dharma? Sanatan Dharma is a science of soul to always love and serve God. That's it. That's what its meaning is. Because soul is Sanatan, the dharma of the soul, which is to love and serve God, is also Sanatan. Soul never dies. This dharma also never dies. That is the meaning of Sanatan Dharma, right? We call this word Hindu. We call ourselves Hindu in language as Hindi, and this country as Hindustan, right? But this Hindu is nowhere. This word itself is nowhere mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, because this word, uh, this is given by foreigners to us, right? When Mughals came to India, they invaded. There's this Sindh river which flows in the region of Pakistan today, today's Pakistan, right? So from that side they came, and they did not have in their Arabian language, they did not have this pronunciation of sir. So they used to speak her. Sir used to be sir used to be pronounced as her in their language. So the Sindhu river was called Hindu by them, and then whoever lives other side of the Sindhu river is Sindhu, that in their language Hindu, and that is how it became Hindustan, and the language became Hindi, and so on, right? Now Aurangzeb actually had put this jizya tax on the Hindus, right? Extra tax. If you are Hindus, you have to pay extra tax, and many people who could not afford, they converted to Islam, right? All these Christians, all these Muslims on this tract of land, they just look like us, right? Mughals, actually Turks and Mughals, they came from outside. Christians came from outside. We were already living here, and the conversions were done, and now the Muslims and Christians, whoever are living here, they are actually this they have like same ancestry as ours, right? But they have been converted uh, purposefully and forcefully. Hmm? Already Indian culture was corrupted because of the caste system, and then Britishers also actually took advantage of it. Even today, they are taking advantage of it in so many states and villages. That these Hindu people, they don't accept you because you are the lower caste, and you accept Jesus. You take to Christianity. We don't have all these problems of casteism. So of course that corruption happened in Hinduism based on caste. That actually, uh, due to that, our Sanatana Dharma is suffering a lot at this point. But the point is, Sanatana Dharma doesn't talk about this uh, birth-based caste system, and uh, uh, killings, and the discrimination among other religions. Sanatana Dharma is like from womb to tomb. You have all the levels of spiritual principles given. Whatever you can take, you can whatever you can digest, you can accept and take. Okay, so Sanatana Dharma is the full dictionary. Okay, so this is a graph which shows at what time in the history different religions came. So Sanatana Dharma is actually coming from the dawn of creation. And if we do not understand dawn of creation, that is okay. We know for sure, even according to the modern day calculations of Mahabharata, right? Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,500 years ago. Hmm? Now Buddhism came about 2,500 years ago. Christianity came 2,000 years ago, and Islam came just around 13 years ago. Okay. Now Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling to Arjuna in 4th chapter, and first or second verse. He says, "Imam vivasvate yogam prokta vahana avyayam." He says that you know what, Arjuna, I had given whatever knowledge I'm giving it to you right now, I had given the same knowledge to sun god. Who's the sun god at that time? Who was he is Vivaswan. In this creationary cycle, our sun is called Vivaswan. Okay, that's the post. Sun, moon, Chandra, Indra, Varun, Vayu, all Agni, all these are posts of the demigods, devatas. Hmm? So sun is Vivaswan in this cycle, and he says that Krishna says that 120 crore years ago I gave this knowledge when the creation was happening. Okay, now there was one way of classification of the different religions. That religions are given on the basis of ability of audience to digest the truth. Now, second level of classification is depth of verifiable and inconceivable information in the Vedas. In this different scriptures, what information is given which is verifiable and inconceivable. Okay, more it is verifiable, more we can understand that it is giving me more details. So, for example, again, Bible says that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God said, "Let there be earth," and there was earth. So people have to assume that okay, God desires. Of course, that is true. God desires that okay, let there be light, and the sun, moon, and everything comes about. Let there be earth, so the life happens. Now, this is Srimad Bhagavatam. How Srimad Bhagavatam describes how creation happens. Now, in the interest of time, I will skip these slides, but I will send you these verse numbers. If you can actually read, there's a lot of technical information given. So we will just read one slide out of them, okay, just to understand that what kind of detail is given in the Vedic literature. Okay, this is how Mahavishnu. This is Mahavishnu. From his body, lot of bubbles come. He's lying in the causal ocean, and each bubble which comes out of his body is actually one creation. Okay, it has so many planets, and it's one universe in itself. Okay, in this one bubble, there are heavenly planets, hellish planets, Earth, and whatever we know of the space, right? Cosmos is there in one bubble. Okay, see, the self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transferred into three features, becomes known as mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It has three divisions and the powers that involve matter, knowledge of material creations. So if you understand right now, it's very, very difficult subject, and we actually need a teacher to explain this. Hmm? But Bhagavatam second canto, fifth chapter, the verse number is given in 24, 25. It actually mentions that how earth, water, fire, air, ether, these five elements, how they are created. And the creation starts happening from sound. First of all, there is sound. Okay, and from sound, then more kinds of energies appear, and creation happens. And there are so many demigods in charge. Okay, Brahma creates the universe, then he gives the responsibility of progenies to Manus, right? So the lot of explanation is given in this Srimad Bhagavatam. Right now, another example is many religions say God is great, God is love, God is almighty, but they hardly give information about how God is the greatest person, right? Until we know this is so, God is an abstract concept in most of the other religions, right? You do not, they don't describe what is God, how does it look like, what is it like to eat, where does he live, what are his activities. Hmm? These kind of things are not given in the scriptures. God is an abstract concept. He is the most powerful person, and he knows everything. Omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. These are the three features. Now you just pray and live your life. These are the scriptures. Just live your life accordingly. But here, when we come to Sanatan Dharma, this Vedic literature, such variety of information is there. So many pastimes are described. Prabhupada actually used to say that you come to us, and we will tell you What is God or who is God? What is his name? What is his address? Who is his girlfriend? Who are his family members? What are the names of his parents? Which instrument he likes to play? Who are his pets? Right? What does he like to eat? What does he like to play? Everything we will tell you. Why do you search here and there? Right? This information is available in the Vedas in so much depth. Okay. So again, little bit of recap. Why should we take anything which is given in the Vedas as supreme? Because the Vedic the knowledge, right? The knowledge which is given in the Vedas is by far superior than anything else in this world. Some examples are given on the screen. Arithmetic progressions, they are explained in the Yajurveda. Positive and negative numbers are explained in the Brahmaputra Siddhanta. Algebra, trigonometry, calculus, quadratic equations, uh, gravity, all these things. I had shared some posters also on the group to which tells that what all are there in what all is there in the Vedas. Okay, again, this is Surya Siddhanta. It tells that Earth's diameter is specifically 7840 miles. And the modern instruments, they have measured it to be 7926. It is so close. Distance between Earth and Moon is given already in the Vedas. Okay, so let's move ahead quickly. So, okay, now there are two kinds of classifications we have seen so far. The kind of the quality of verifiable information which is given, and second is the ability of audience to digest the truth. Okay, these are the two ways of classifying the different religions of the scriptures. Now this is the third. Okay, the religions are at different levels, and if we categorize them in terms of kind of emotions which are exhibited by a person who is approaching God, third classification is kind of emotions, the kind of exchanges with God. There are four kinds of people who come, right? So first level is, I'll just project everything together and then we'll discuss them. Okay. So there are some people who approach God out of fear, right? That, oh, God will punish me, so I should worship God. These are people like tribal people living in jungles, in the mountain caves and so on. So for them, even a tree is God, mountain is God, and they are very, very afraid of God, and they follow some rituals somehow. Okay. One time my friend was telling me that he was going in a train somewhere, and some person came and he had a lot of papers, printed pamphlets in his hand, and he threw these papers in the compartment, the people who were living there, and he shouted that you accept that Jesus is the only savior, otherwise you will suffer in the hell of sulfuric acid. So these kind of things are told to people, that if you do not worship, you will not, you will go to hell, God will punish you will not get to eat, you will not get to earn anything. So people at this level, they worship God out of fear. Uh, there are some people who worship God out of desires. Hmm? Most of the people in the Hinduism today, they fit this bill. Praying for material benefits. Sukh sampati ghar aave, kasht mite tan ka. Isn't it? People pray like this. Aartis are sung like this. Dhanam dehi in the Maharashtra. Uh, this I have heard in the many of the prayers. This is spoken. Dhanam dehi, janam dehi, rupavati bharya dehi. So we want a lot of material benefits, and we know that, okay, in this world, when I want a raise, when I want some bonus, I go to my boss. If I want to get something done, I go to some leader or some doctor, engineer. So I develop relations. I present them something, and then I derive something which is of higher value. So this kind of business is going on in this world in every relation, and the same thing I impose on God also. I told you about Visa Balaji, right? Okay. And then third is the level of duty. This person, understands that God is supreme and is supplying us everything. So out of gratitude, he worships God, prays to God. Okay, yeah, he has been giving so much. Why should we trouble him asking for more? And he can give me more, but at least I should be grateful. Okay, so out of gratitude, out of duty, this is done. Hmm? And so my question to you is, what is the better level? Is a fear is a good level to be in? No, it is the lowest level. Hmm? People who are atheists can be brought to this level, but not today's intelligent atheists. They will say that, oh no, we don't care. God cannot do anything anyway, so we don't. We are not afraid of God. So this fear works in the sects which are poor, which are suppressed, right? And that is how the conversions are happening. Even today, people are getting converted to other religions. They always approach these kind of sect of the society. Okay, so problem at this level is that if the fear goes away, let's say somehow this person becomes self-sufficient and he's not looking for anything, he's not afraid now, he is secure enough, then he can stop worshiping. That, yeah, I was worshiping when I was fearful, now I do not need to worship, right? That is a problem at this level. At the level of desire, what happens? If the desire gets fulfilled, the person keeps on getting more and more greedy. And if the desire is not fulfilled, then this person's faith is shaken. So this is a problem at this level of desire. If the desire is not fulfilled, he will say, ये तो कुछ नहीं होता, भगवान भगवान कुछ नहीं है, नहीं तो मेरे रिलेटिव को नहीं मरना चाहिए था शायद. Because he was sick, he was in the hospital, and I prayed to God that you please save him. And these are these Amitabh Bachchans, right? In the movie, they go to the temple and they bang the bell and say that tu bhagwan nahi hai, tu patthar hai. Just because my relative is not recovering, you are not God. Huh? So these kind of people are at this level. Duty is out of at the level of duty. uh, it is a better level than previous two, but still it is conditional. The condition is that God is supplying, so I have to be grateful. So tomorrow, if God does not supply, then I will not be grateful, right? This person may actually fall away from the spiritual life. Now the highest level is the level of love. Bhagavatam says, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adokshje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidhati. It says that the devotion to God should be ahetuki, without any material motives, apratihata, without any breaks. It should be continuous. And these, in this category, are the devotees, great devotees of Lord, like Prahlad, like Dhruva, like Hanumanji, like gopis and gopa friends of Krishna in Vrindavan, like Bharat in the brother of Lord Ramchandra, Lakshman, right? All these devotees, they are fitting into this category of love. They do not want anything from God, right? They only want to give what? Give their love in form of their services, in form of their gifts. So dharma is supposed to bring people to this ultimate level, ultimate religion of love of God. First of all, people have to be explained that the God is there, right? That's how we started in the discovery of the journey. Does God exist? Yes, God exists. So now if God exists, then what is my constitutional position? Love and serve God. Slowly this relationship progresses, and then there are different religions in between that take us to the different, they raise us to the different levels. Okay, so ascending to the ultimate religion of pure love of God is the principle and the purpose here. Okay, now who is God? Why do we chant Hare Krishna and worship Lord Shri Krishna as supreme? Because we had discussed it the last week, just as a brief. Lord Krishna is the only one who possesses these 6 qualities in full: all beauty, all strength, all fame, all riches, that is the wealth, all knowledge, and all renunciation. These, as per the Vedic literatures and the acharyas, the saints, the devotees, great devotees who have been there, they have always explained that, Bhaj Govindam. Shankaracharya used to say, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam Mood Matte. Hmm? That only Lord Krishna, only Govind is what is the object of worship, and he can only reciprocate with all of us in all different ways. Hmm? Now, we can actually, so this is again a subject to be discussed separately. So we can do that in the next level courses. But as of now, I will go ahead. And there is one more level of classification. uh, and this understanding now is only in the Sanatan Dharma. Okay. Nowhere else this understanding is given. That is the understanding of different modes. Okay. Bhagavad Gita talks about it in a very nice way. So there are 3 modes which are working in this world. Okay, what are these modes? In Hindi or Sanskrit, we know them. We know them by the name of Satogun or Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. So in English, they are called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Right now, in Sanskrit, actually, guna means rope. Okay, so we are actually tied with these ropes, which is 6 8, and okay, I'll finish by 6:30 as we discussed before the start. So now there are, what are these goodness, passion, ignorance? They are the these are the ropes which are binding all of us in this world. Okay. Now, what are these bindings? We'll get to that later. But before that, we have to understand that what are these qualities of each of these uh, ropes or each of these modes. Hmm? The mode of ignorance, or okay, let's start with mode of goodness, Sattva-guna. Sattva-guna is identified with knowledge and happiness. Okay, Gyan and uh, the bliss, happiness. The person, sometimes we see that there are some people who are, very peaceful, calm. They talk very softly. They have interest in classical kind of things like classical music, classical dance. When there is a holiday, where do you want to spend your time? Hmm? That's that actually reveals your nature, your inherent nature. Some people, they want to go to mountains, hill stations, or nature, right? That is the effect of mode of goodness. There are some people who want to go to movies, cricket matches. Hmm? So this is different kind of sports activity. They want to play sports, or they want to watch live sports, or watch live on the TV, things like that. So that is mode of passion, or they want to go to shopping malls, right? That is mode of passion. So passion is characterized by attachment and hankering. I want more, I want more, I want more, and I want a lot of activity in life. Something should happening, should be happening. So that is rajoguna, that is mode of passion. And then comes tamoguna, mode of ignorance, that is identified by laziness, sleep, and madness. Hmm? So actually, in this world, everything can be categorized in these 3 ways. The time of the day is in 3 modes. The morning time is goodness. Afternoon, or after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, starts passion. And in the evening, after sunset, starts ignorance. The places in this world are in modes. For example, jungles and the mountains are a mode of goodness, satoguna. That's why meditation used to happen at these places. Even today it happens. No, yogis, sadhus, they go to these mountains and jungles. Now jungles are no more, but some mountains are there. So sadhus go there. And there are places like workplaces, offices, right? They are in mode of passion because things have to get done there. Schools, colleges, workplaces, and brothels or bars or no, these restaurants, all these are mode of ignorance, right? This disco clubs, all places which are dark, right? And this, especially these pubs and these places, you know, there's very dim light. You cannot see properly there, and smoke everywhere. People are smoking, drinking, and nobody knows what they're talking about. But they think that this is highly intellectual thing they are doing it, isn't it? So places, time, so people also we cannot categorize in today's world a person as a satoguni person, rajoguni or tamoguni person, because these are mixed. We all exhibit different modes at different times and different circumstances, right? But largely the people who are like artists kind of nature, the poets, philosophers, they have influence of mode of goodness more than other modes on them, right? Similarly, we can uh, see other professions or other kind of people. Now, okay, and somebody actually in some of the discussions I've had in the past, somebody told that what asked temples are in Satogun or which mode? Actually, yeah, our understand so far we have understood that the temples are Satogun, but actually temples are even beyond Satogun. They are transcendental level. They are Divya, right? So our goal of life should be to actually rise in these modes. If we are exhibiting the qualities of mode of ignorance, we should come to the mode of passion, and we should come to the mode of goodness, like that. But we do not get stuck at the mode of goodness also. We have to go to the transcendental level, okay, even beyond goodness. So Bhagavad Gita says that, and Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that Nistraya Gunayo Bhava Arjuna. Hmm? Traya Gunya Vishya Veda, Nistraya Gunya Bhava Arjuna. That there are three modes described in the Vedas, but the goal should be to even rise beyond these three modes. Okay, so temples actually are transcendental. Similarly, the food offered to Krishna, uh, which is that is again transcendental. That is not in mode of goodness because it is prasad now. Okay, so now why are we discussing this? We are discussing because this is the next level of understanding of the scriptures. Even in the Sanatan Dharma, different kinds of practices are given to people who are in different modes. Okay. Now, what are those practices? Because people are in modes, scriptures also offer things according to the modes, because otherwise they will not be able to accept things. So after actually Vyasdev, right, Ved Vyasji, actually he's called as Vyasdev with reverence. So Vyasdev had written down all the scriptures, all the Vedas and Upanishads and everything. Then he came down to the Puranas and Mahabharatas, right? So he actually divided these Puranas into three parts. He wrote 18 Puranas. There are only total 18 Puranas in the Sanatana Dharma. He divided these 18 Puranas into three parts: six for mode of goodness, six for mode of passion, and six for mode of ignorance. Okay, and each Purana actually it elevates the people uh, for which it is meant for, right? It elevates to them to a higher level, to a better mode. And a particular deity is offered to these people who are in different modes according to their, according to the level they can rise. Okay. So, for example, who is the master? Who is the Abhineta of mode of passion? Rajoguna, Brahma, because he is the highest demigod. Okay. So Hiranyakashipu, for example, he worshipped Lord Brahma. Who is the Abhineta? Who is the Adhishtata Dev for ignorance? He is Lord Shiva. Main deity is Lord Shiva. And then there are Kali, Durga also. And then who is the Abhineta of Lord, who mode of goodness? That is Lord Vishnu. Okay. Now let's go ahead. Worship in mode of ignorance. What kind of worship is there prescribed? Now I'll give you an example. You would have heard about Jamshedpur, right? Jamshedpur has a very famous Kali temple. Hmm. What is the specialty of this temple? So there is a circular wall outside the temple. Actually, there is a compound, and it is covered by a circular wall. And in the middle of this compound is a two-sided razor, the blade. Okay, the sword. So the person who wants something, he actually speaks his wish, and he takes a chicken and he throws from a distance on this sword. And if the chicken gets cut from the sword, his gift is accepted by goddess Kali. Okay, and his wish will be fulfilled. And if the chicken is not cut, then his wish is not fulfilled. That is how it is understood. Hmm? So while he throws, he expresses desire, and then that is a kind of ritual which is being followed there. So at the certain times in the year, lakhs and lakhs of chickens get cut like this. All these people are those who actually want to eat meat, who are in the mode of ignorance, right? They cannot actually take to the standards of worship of Lord Vishnu, then they are prescribed this way. Hmm? Similarly, Lord Shiva also, he accepts intoxicating things like bhang, ganja. People actually, there are so many sadhus, Shiva worshippers who smoke also, right? It actually increases their meditation and taste. They do it in this way. At least they claim that. Okay. Another example is that in the Varanasi, you would have heard about this. Aghoris live in the Varanasi. There is this Manikarnika Ghat in the Varanasi, and this is a Shamshan Ghat, and so many bodies come there for burning, right? And the incoming traffic is so much of the bodies, dead bodies, that even before a previous body has burned, the new body comes. So many a times these half burned bodies only they are thrown into Ganga, because this ghat is on the banks of the river. So they're just thrown like this, and the new body is burnt. And around 1 or 2 kilometers down the flow of river Ganga, there are aghoris living on the banks. What do? They actually take these half burnt dead bodies out, and they take their flesh and they cook it or half cook it, and they eat it. That is their practice. That is their sadhana, tapasya. So this process is given to such, kind of spiritual practice given to such people also who are addicted to eating meat. Now people sometimes say that hum maans khate hain, right? We eat meat. Meat is understood to be mass in Hindi, but actually mass is not a Hindi word. It is a mantra in Sanskrit. It is called mam sah. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. My internet connection was showing me warnings that it is unstable, so I thought of checking. Okay, so mams actually is a mantra. Okay, what does it mean? What is this mantra? Actually, it is prescribed that people in the center of the village, uh, temple is there, but it is never the temple of Kali. Kali temple is always outside the village. You can think about any village if you know, right? The Kali temple has to be outside, and people who want to drink liquor or eat meat, right? They are supposed to go there, and they uh, offer. So they take a goat with them outside the Kali temple. They cut the goat with their own hands, and before cutting, they chant this mantra in the goat's ears. What is the mantra? They say Mam Sah 3 times. Mam Sah, Mam Sah. What is the meaning? Mam means me in Sanskrit. Sah means he, right? So the mantra is, the meaning of the mantra is that in this life I am cutting this goat. In the next life, this goat will become a human, I will become a goat, and the goat will cut me in the next life. I am accepting the responsibility, and thus I am sacrificing this goat. That is the mantra of actually. That is the meaning of the Mam Saha, and the Mam Saha has in its bad form has become mass in Hindi, and people say that mass khate hain. Mass khane ka ये अर्थ है that I am accepting the responsibility of getting sacrificed in the next life in the same way. Okay, no religion says that you can go to these supermarkets, Reliance Fresh and Tata Star, and you can purchase meat and you can cook and eat. No, it is not allowed. So if even if we have to eat meat, we have to follow these injunctions, and only the people who have to eat meat have to follow this practice. Now, what is happening is, I came to know that my chachi ji, right, my aunt, she uh, went to some temple near her hometown, and she offered alcohol there on to that deity. That was a Bhairo temple. Hmm? So now what do? Because Bhairo accepts alcohol, and the understanding is that no, if I offer alcohol to that deity, my wish will be fulfilled. With that understanding, people are doing it. No, but you don't have to do this because you are not going to consume the alcohol. So it is not required, right? We don't have to take the practice of the lower modes. Okay. Okay. So, and we discussed about halal also, right? Even Islam talks about it. There are rules for that. So this is worship in mode of ignorance, tamogun. Hmm? Then comes worship in mode of okay, wait. Okay, there is something more on the mode of ignorance. Those fond of material prosperity approach Lord Shiva for benedictions, right? We have no in the history Puranas we know these stories of Bhasmasur, Brikasur, even Hiranyakashipu. No, Hiranyakashipu is mode of uh, passion. It will be coming in the next slide. And these people they perform severe tapasyas like cutting of their body, piercing flesh, right? They smoke intoxicants and so on. Okay, let's move ahead. Mode of passion. It is performed out of hankering for honor, desire for material assets, competitive mentality, desire to become the ultimate enjoyer. And the example is given Hiranyakashipu. He worshipped Lord Brahma to attain all of that, right? To become the superpower in this entire universe. And he was successful. Uh, and all this is where most of us fall. When we go to temples, when we celebrate some festivals in our home, this is our desire. We sing these artis uh, कि इन माता जी की आरती जो कोई नर गावे सुख संपत्ति पावे. These kind of artis are there. They are written with this mentality in mind that lot of people they do upvas, so many vratas with this mentality in mind. Okay, so now comes worship in mode of goodness. People in mode of goodness they worship Vishnu Tattva, Vishnu, Ram, Krishna, Narsingha. All these personalities are worshipped, and as you can read on the slide, the worship is very simple. Little bit of tulsi, some flowers, fruits, water. That's what Krishna says. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. I am happy with that. You offer me this, I'll take it. From the Ramayana and Mahabharata and this Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna's life, we know that. What was Krishna's favorite food? He used to take butter because it was churned out of so much love by his devotees. So he used to go and steal butter. And Lord Ram, he accepted fruits from Shabri. Lord Krishna accepted banana peels from Vidura's wife, Vidurani. When Lord Krishna went to Vidura's house, Vidurani actually she was so overwhelmed with love that she forgot. She was out of her senses and she was serving bananas to Krishna. And out of her, absent mindedness due to overwhelming love, she was experiencing. She was throwing the bananas and she was giving banana peels to Krishna. And Krishna was eating banana peels. Can you believe it? Lord, God all only wants love from us, nothing else. Pure love. Okay. But when we go with these desires and motives, right, that does not remain love. That is business. We do business with Lord. I put 5 paisa in the hundi in the temple, and I pray that you please give me 5 lakhs. Uh, the chiller which is nowhere acceptable in the market today, that can be found in the temple's hundis, right? Because these people take, when they open their purse, they take the smallest possible denomination note or the current whatever the coins, and they put that in the hundi. So that is a business going on. The most essential ingredient in everything is the love or devotion. When we chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, right, the meaning of the Maha Mantra is that, my dear Lord, please give me your seva. Please engage me in your service. I want to serve you out of love. That's it. Okay. That this prayer is done out of love. That is the highest level. And this worship results in purification of heart. Then our mind, intelligence, false ego, they are purified. And we become eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. And this worship is done in the guidance of a pure devotee always. Because this kind of set us to the level of transcendence. Okay. Under the right guidance. Now, Hanumanji, we know from Ramayana that he opened his heart actually, and he showed that whatever what I have in my heart is only Sita Ram. That's it. I don't have anything else. We see in the picture, right? The same picture. And to this Hanumanji, the pure devotee of Lord Ram, we go to the temples and we pray, "Oh Maruti Nandan, please give us one Maruti car." Right? That's the kind of prayer we say. And there are exclusive temples of Hanumanji. Hanumanji doesn't want to be worshipped. He wants to. He's happy. He wants us to go to Lord Ram. And he being a pure devotee is guiding us how to perform bhakti with his own examples. And the only his entire life is meant to give pleasure to Lord Ram. And that's what we see from all the characters of Ramayana actually. Okay. So actually we have covered the most important part of the presentation till now. Okay. Next is very, very small topic. It will take 5 minutes. Are there any questions so far? I can take them and then I'll just share one or two more examples on the mode of goodness and then we'll break. Are there any questions?
Prabhuji, just one thing.
Yes.
So far, it has been enriching. Just help to understand. This knowledge is of good use when we can put it to practice, right?
Yes.
While human understanding is good with whatever you have preached, many times we lost path because of our anger, right? And this is part of the character of a human existence. So, with all the knowledge and gyan, how do you believe that we can, first of all, control that basic weakness to remain calm and then do whatever we have to do? Is there any specific, maybe you would have discussed this in past, but just one recap on this will help. That how can we keep ourselves focused, stay calm, and not lose our self and be angry? Because that is where the whole problem starts.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Very nice question, Shashiji. So actually, yeah, anger is a bad thing. We should not. We should try not to be angry. We should always try that. But the anger is not the starting point. Starting point is lust. Bhagavad Gita says that ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात् संजायते काम कामात् क्रोधो विजायते. So Krishna is telling that how krodh, anger, it comes from what? Kamat krodho vijayate. Lust. Lust results in anger, unfulfilled lust. Now, where does lust come from? Sangat sanjayate kama. So lust comes from association, attachment. When we are too attached to some conception, the lust arises. Now this thing has to happen in this way only. And attachment, how attachment comes? Attachment comes from dhyato vishayan pumsaha sangashteshu upjayate. That when we contemplate on some sense object, right? As living beings, we want to be happy. Now, when we, as souls, but the soul's desires are filtered from mind, intelligence, false ego, which are conditioned, right? So if I wear green glasses, then the entire world will look green to me, isn't it? So when I am looking for happiness, this conditioning, different colors conditioning on different persons on of mind and different colors on mind and false ego of different people, they look the word. They say, right, that we look at the word in with our perceptions. We don't look at this world with our eyes. No, we look at this world with our perception. So this perception is the conditioning. Okay. So this soul which wants to be happy perceives outside world, and the mind says that now this object will make you happy, or this person will make you happy, and we contemplate on that. ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसः, मेडिटेट करते हैं हम उस पे बहुत दिनों तक. हाँ, मुझे वर्ल्ड टूर पे जाना है, मुझे वर्ल्ड टूर पे जाना है, उसके लिए मैं 40 साल काम करूंगा, बहुत सारा पैसा कमाऊंगा, फिर ताकि मैं वर्ल्ड टूर पे जा सकूं. So now, because of my meditation on that sense object, I am attached to that sense object now. ठीक है? अगर if there is anything which hampers my plan of going to the world tour, I will not like it. So this meditation on the world tour has become my lust now. Now I want it because I have worked hard for it, because I have planned for it for so many years. I want to have it at any cost. And if something is not going right in the life, then I get angry. If something is hampering that plan of mine, then I get angry. Okay. So now next time when we get angry, we can actually analyze it. That why did I get angry? What was it that I wanted to happen and did not happen, because of which I got angry? Because this is the equation. Otherwise, this anger will not come. If we are not lusty for something, even for decisions, right? Let's say I make a particular decision in the home that this thing should happen in this way, and the kids or any other family member, he does not accept that, or he breaks that kind of law which I have made, then I become angry, isn't it? But if we rise to the transcendental level and see from a distance, then we analyze, and then we understand, oh, okay, this was a simple problem, that I wanted this to happen and this did not happen, but that happened, and I'm feeling angry. So how do I control my anger? Spiritually, we need to understand that I am not the proprietor of anything. I am not the controller of anything, and I am not the doer of anything. The doer, proprietor, and controller is Lord Krishna. He is God. Okay, I will plan the best of to the best of my abilities, but the plan may not be sanctioned by God. So if it is not sanctioned, it will not happen. So if it doesn't happen, by understanding that it is God's will, I will be peaceful. Lord Krishna says that Bhoktaram Yagyatapsam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhurdam Sarva Bhutanam Yatvamam Shantim Ichchati. The peace formula. That if when a living being understands that I am their supreme well-wisher, the supreme benefactor, right? If everybody understands that, then they will be very peaceful. then there is no question of getting angry, because I will plan the way I want to, but ultimately it has to be sanctioned by the superpowers, right? That is the spiritual way of understanding. And also, when we get angry, we get into tamoguna, because anger is the tamoguni nature, right? And we forget. Uh, we go out of control. We forget right from wrong, and we take some drastic steps, and then we repent. Whatever has, in the history of mankind, whatever has been done during the anger, the person has always repented it. Always repented it. Okay. So these kind of things, when we remember, so we need to make us intellectually strong. We need to feed the right thing to our intelligence. Now, whatever I talked about just now is coming from the Shastras, is coming from the scriptures. It has been heard from the bona fide authorities, right? So we should be always connected to the authorities. Satsang. That is the meaning of satsanga, the association of like-minded, saintly, spiritual people. When I am with them, I will always be reminded, in so many other ways, that yes, I am not this body. I am spirit, soul. I am away from. Don't have anything to do with this body. And whatever has happened, which has made me angry, does it affect the soul or does it affect the body? It just affects the body. So then why should I be angry? Right? So there are so many ways spirituality helps us getting into the right understanding, in the right frame of mind, with which we can slowly and gradually rise ourselves. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Shashiji.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. You explained it beautifully. So ये दो प्रकरण जो आपने बताए, ये गीता के किस चैप्टर में है? अगर मैं खुद से इसका अभ्यास थोड़ा पढ़ना चाहूँ इस पे, तो
I will send it to you surely.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah. If I don't, then you please feel free to remind me, because I keep forgetting things. So
Yes.
please feel free. I will not mind, if you
Yeah.
remind me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the worshiping mode of goodness, right? In case there are no other questions, I'll just share one more way of looking at it now. See, in our most of the festivals which we celebrate in India, right? We celebrate Ram Navami, we celebrate Diwali, we celebrate Holi, Janmashtami, so many other festivals. In all these festivals, now I want you to observe in the previous life, and now after this, now you got this knowledge. How would you want to change? In all these festivals, it is birthday of God, or it is like some other occasion which is connected to God, right? Lord Ram returned to Ayodhya, so there is Diwali. Janmashtami is Lord Krishna's birthday. Ramnavami is Lord Ram's birthday. But on these occasions, who is getting the gifts? Who is getting the new dresses? And who is getting all the sweets and these savories? Everything is for me. I get the new dress. I consume everything. I actually forget God. So festivals in today's age have become another form of sense gratification. When there are Navaratras, people will go out and play Garba on the filmy songs. And especially in those times, most of these, you know, uh, free living girls and boys, they indulge in illicit relationships. At the time of Navaratras, the Garbas and these clubs are now hosting these Garba festivals. What is the reason? Because they are looking for these opportunities to mingle with the opposite sex. Hmm? We worship Lakshmi on the day of Diwali, Lakshmi and Ganesh. Nobody worships Lord Ram. Nobody worships Narayan. Now Lakshmi is whose wife? Narayan's wife. Okay. So wherever the husband goes, the wife will go automatically, right? A chaste wife will always follow her husband. Hmm? And if and she will not go alone, basically, anywhere, right? Leaving her husband. And then when we are calling Lakshmi, but when we are not calling Narayan, will Lakshmi come? She will not come. And all the more, the this concept, this mentality. What is my mentality? See, Ravan, right? This Ravana, what did he want to do? There is Lord Ram, there is Mother Sita, and they are the divine couple, right? Ravan actually wants to take Sita away from Ram. and he wants to enjoy Sita. Hmm? We all are like Ravanas only, because we are worshipping exclusively Mother Lakshmi, right? We want Lakshmi without Narayan. We are so that's what we are doing. We are trying to separate Lakshmi from Narayan, right? And the Hanuman is the pure devotee of Lord. He wants to bring them back together. Okay, so this is actually a very very important and very very you know intelligent way of looking at things now when we how do we celebrate our festivals. Okay, so please keep this in mind. Whatever we do, whatever rituals, whatever festivals we perform, they always should be done with the spirit of loving service to God. No matter if I can't decorate, if I can't donate, if I can't go to the temple, that is okay. Whatever is practically possible, I should do it to the best of my ability. If I can't, God is happy in simple things, right? He loves Sudama more than so many other rich devotees. Because Sudama exchanges love with Krishna. These when Sudama took these poha with him to Dwarka, Lord Krishna accepted them wholeheartedly, and he said that this is the most delicious thing I have ever eaten. That is Lord Krishna. That is Lord Narayan. Okay, so we should always try to surrender with loving devotion to Lord. Okay, now many a times we'll just take this topic very very briefly. Is God some impersonal light or energy? Many people think that God is light, God is abstract. But uh, so Srila Prabhupada used to say that even even the bulb, right? Bulb is the electric bulb. If we say that God is light, but the bulb glows because of electric supply, right? So where is this electric supply coming from? So similarly, in the matter of God, we want to understand that is God an impersonal figure or is he a person? And we'll take an example of a big corporation like Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft is a well-managed MNC with operations around the world. We know it very nicely, right? And behind all that, there is a person running and managing it. Of course, now Bill Gates has retired, but we get the point, right? There is a person. There has to be a CEO. There has to be a CTO, CFO, and so many things. There's one ultimate controller or proprietor of the business, right? That is a person. Similarly, this is United States, which is governed by a president. This is an old slide, so it says Barack Obama. So who is the person behind the gigantic manifestation, this cosmic uh, universe, right? There has to be a person, because you know when we say that God does not have a form, or God is light, or God is abstract, uh, of course God's power can be seen in this world. Everything is happening in this world under his supervision. For example, uh, the president of United States or president of India or prime minister of India, he is ruling, so he will pass one bill. He will just pause. He will declare that there is this lockdown from tomorrow. Now he doesn't have to go everywhere and ensure there is lockdown. No, his energies are there in the form of administration, judiciary, police, and so on. Right. So that is his energy. But the energy cannot become the prime minister. Prime minister has to be a person, and with his energy, he controls the nation. Right. Similarly, God is a person, and with his energies, unlimited energies, he controls the world. So Krishna instructs to Arjuna that aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate. That is 10th chapter 8th verse. That I am the source of all the spiritual material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Okay. Again, he says 10.39. Yat chapi sarvabhutanam bijam tad aham Arjuna. That all these living entities, bijam tad aham. All these living entities, I am the seed giving father. Nadadasti vina yatsyan maya bhutam characharam. Whether it is moving or not moving. I am the generating seed of all existences. There is nothing which can exist without me. He says, Maya adhakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. 9.10. He says the material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction. Okay. Prakritim samavastabhya visarjami punah punah. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. He says, Gama Vishyacha Bhutani, Dharyami Aham Ojsa. 15.13. He says that I enter into each planet, I hold them in their orbits. So, I'm so very quickly, I've shown you so many verses, which actually, where Krishna is telling that, I am God. He's proclaiming this. This is another reason we say that we understand that Krishna is that supreme God, because no other personality in entire Vedic literature, no other demigod in any of the Puranas has himself proclaimed that I am God. People consider many personalities as God. That is their problem. But if we go by the scriptures, and if we go by the dialogues by the dialogues by the authorities, Lord Shiva has never said that I am God. He always meditates. Who does he meditate upon? He meditates on Lord Ram. Lord Ram is his Ishtadev. Lord Shiva's Ishtadev. Okay. So of course, this is again a very technical subject. There is a very nice detailed understanding. It's like it takes around 3 to 4 classes which we do in the next level course, right, to understand with all the angles. We understand that how Krishna is God, but I'm giving you a brief summary right now. Okay, this is again yad yad vibhutimat sattva. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Just a spark is enough. My spark creates everything beautiful and opulent. Lord Krishna not only claimed himself to be God, but he proved it by showing the whole universe within his belly when he opened his mouth to show Mother Yashoda, and he also showed his Vishwaroop to the Arjuna. In the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma is saying that Ishvara Parama Krishna. Lord Krishna is the Param Ishwar. Nobody is beyond him. That is Lord Brahma. Okay. In Vyasdev, in Srimad Bhagavatam, is saying that Ete Chamshakalah Pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He's saying that he describes a lot of incarnations of God in Srimad Bhagavatam, and after that he says that this all these incarnations I have told, and there are many which I have not told also. Incarnations of God are like waves in the ocean. But out of all these incarnations, Krishna is the supreme God. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Okay, and conclusion. What is the conclusion of Arjuna after listening to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita? He says that Ahustam Rishya Sarve Devarshi Naradastha Param Brahma Param Dham Pavitram Paramam Bhavam. He says Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajamibhum. That now Krishna, I have understood that you are that supreme person, and you are Param Brahma. You are Param Dham. Supreme abode is yours. You are the supreme person, Param Brahma. And you are super pure entity. Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Purusham Shashvatam. You are the eternal personality. Divyam. You are the most transcendental person. Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. You are the beginning of all the Adi means beginning, right? You are the beginning of all the Godhead. And Ajam, you are unborn. And he says that all these other rishis are also claiming the same thing. Who? Narad, Asit, Deval, Vyas. And now you are also telling me the same. Swayam Chaiva Vishime. You also told me. So I accept that you are the supreme personality of Godhead. Okay. So like this, great acharyas also said that Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have all confirmed that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Shankaracharya also has said the same thing, right? Eka Shastra Deviki Putra Geetam. So this is from Gita Mahatmya. So that is how we understand that Lord Krishna is supreme. Now I will end here. Okay, this is very late today, 6:50, and I can stay if there are any questions. And otherwise, the announcement is after this was the last session of Discover Yourself. We have completed the course. So congratulations, all of you. And I hope it changes your lives. It has changed many lives. It has changed my life 10 years ago. And I hope and pray for the same. Please keep on chanting this mantra whenever you get time, wherever you get time. All right. There are no hard and fast rules for this. This is a very powerful transcendental mantra. Okay. And the way of chanting is that we focus on the sound vibration when we speak this mantra. Right. Minimum one round means 108 times we speak this mantra on the beats. You can get the beats from the temple. I am returning to Pune around 22nd Jan. And after that, we can try to meet. I would love to meet all of you in person. Okay. And also, my request is that you join our next level course that is again based on Bhagavad Gita, but a little bit more deeper. So you see, discuss Bhagavad Gita not from first chapter to last, not sequentially. The reason is because we do not have background. We do not know. The Arjuna is at a certain platform, and Krishna is telling him Bhagavad Gita. We have to wake up to that platform still. So we take these themes so that our basics are clear, and then in the future we start from verse by verse. So next level course has already started. It is taken by one of very dear friend of mine. Those who are interested in the next level course, please drop me a message. Okay. On the group, I will enable the group. I'm sorry, there's some noise. So I will enable the group for all of you to message. You can send your realizations, your observations, and your feedback about this course. How was I as an instructor or facilitator? You can give me feedback so that I can improve. And also you can suggest your, whether you would like to join for the next course. Okay. That will be very nice if you can. And that way you are always connected to the spirituality and your progress will keep on happening. Many times we think that, okay, I've got this now, I will keep on chanting this mantra. It doesn't happen. I'm very frankly, I'm telling you, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, we'll do it. After that, we will fall away from the spiritual life. So now when you have gotten the purpose of your life, you have understood the reality, and you have gotten these eyes of intelligence, Shastric intelligence now, it is high time that you all take the spirituality seriously. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, Shashiji, you want to say something?
Yeah. Prabhuji, this was first of all my personal thanks. आपने help किया है. It has given a perspective. I'll not say that I have learned a lot, but I will only say that my spiritual age is very less now, and it has started by way of this interaction. While spiritually I have the family background, but I think the understanding of a spiritual subject just kicked off a few weeks back in a real sense. So thank you for getting me to think in this direction. And second thing is, yes, personally, I would want to go through this detailed connect. It's just that I don't know the modus operandi and the timing, but definitely please let me know. The second thing is I also attended that Gita Sar thing that was done on 25th December.
Yes.
That program was also good, but honestly, it was not interactive. It was more a monologue from one side. There was a Q&A, but Q&A has time restrictions, and I respect that. So some things could not be as satisfactory as it is in this type of a conversation that you keep open. So thank you for that. And the third thing that I personally would wish to is how can I read Gita? Yes, the concept of having a guru and the philosophies and the guidance that you have provided is important. But in today's world where how to identify a guru remains a challenge, and then at least at minimum practice what you have said and at least read the textbook maybe it is not complete enough to read and be matured with everything, but how to make that baby step to start reading will what I would want to get through the detailed session, where maybe if you go chapter by chapter, when you complete a verse, I can read that much of verse and be sure, because that is one objective that I am setting for myself, that at least in this life, if not many times, at least I have read Bhagavad Gita once completely.
Yes, thank you very much, Ashish. Your seriousness is, I'm very glad to hear this from you, that you want to take those baby steps and you want to, regularly be in connect and study on your own. So exactly the way we have designed these courses, right? In the next level course is called Positive Thinker. And in fact, today itself, the topic which was discussed was how to identify a guru. Okay, in this world of when there are so many cheaters out there, and so many things. From the eyes of the scriptures, how do we identify a guru for us? That was discussed today. So the point is, um, we discuss Bhagavad Gita these kind in the topic wise, and you will get assignments, you will get these verses which we are getting discussed. The modus operandi is that you go to the sessions. Earlier they used to be in person always. Only in the pandemic we started doing this remotely on Zoom. For some time it will of course happen on Zoom, so you can connect to that batch. I will give you the details, and the topics are discussed week after week in this way. And then what you have to do in your personal life also, what you have to study and all, that will be told in the class there. Okay.
Thank
So
you. I look forward. And do I need to again remind or maybe drop a note, or it is sufficient that I spoke about it now?
yeah, next course I will connect you. That I will remember, because that is the agenda after this course anyway. So I will remember that.
And that will be systematically beginning from chapter 1, right?
No, as I said, Bhagavad Gita, we do not yet start from chapter 1. We take the fundamental topics. So the way we did in device, right? We took the fundamental topics so that our base is created. Otherwise, frankly speaking, uh, if we start reading from chapter 1 Bhagavad Gita, we will not derive so much. I mean, we are not able to understand so much because it requires some understanding. So these courses have been designed to bring us up to that understanding first, and right. And once you go to those sessions, see, you will not feel a difference that okay, what is it, was agar if we would have studied from first chapter, it would have been more. No, it will make more, this way makes more sense. That is my personal experience with so many other people I have engaged with. So don't worry about the sequential nature. What we are doing right now is sequential for all of us.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
But everything is from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, that is for sure. And once the base is created, then after that we start from first verse again Bhagavad Gita. Okay. And in my experience, so we have like after this device, that is Positive Thinker course, then there is Self Manager course. After that we are ready. There is one more course that, depending upon the audience understanding and the facilitators understanding, we decide. But you don't worry about it. My appeal to you is that you just go to that batch and start attending.
Okay, okay. And
Yeah.
last thing for me is there was this call out from the Bhagavad Gita Sar that crisp session also to fill up the online form and so the interest. So is that a separate thing? Because I just hold filling that up because I thought let me complete this DYS and then understand that which is the right track to go into before I end up putting myself into two course of action. It's like riding with two legs on two separate boats and sinking oneself. So मैं क्या करूँ? आपका वाला
No,
process
yeah, you can fill up that form nevertheless, and later you can say that yeah, you've already connected, because some of these participants will be connected to the same batch which I'm talking about. Right?
Okay.
We have different batches at different times,
Okay.
and depending upon the suitability and everything, they will be assigned one batch.
ठीक है. And
So you can fill up that form, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, and irrespective of that, you will still assign me to the batch that you are going to put me into, right?
Yes, because this thing may take time. Geeta sir, data management, etc. Right? And I
Okay.
don't want you to miss the sessions because they've already started the course
ठीक.
last week.
Thank you.
So yeah, later you can change also the batch. That's okay. But right now, because it's going on, I want all of you to be connected. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji, and to others, I give it chance to others.
Yeah. Yeah. Please switch on your video cameras now. This is the last. Okay. Let me stop the recording.